Betty Friedan was born Betty Naomi Goldstein on February 4, 1921, in Peoria, Illinois. She had 2 younger siblings, and her parents were Harry Goldstein, a Russian immigrant and jeweler, and Miriam Horowitz Goldstein, a Hungarian immigrant and a journalist who had to stop working after Friedan was born. Friedan's parents' marriage was rocky, exacerbated by the Great Depression, which made her mother in particular obsess over material things. Her mother also seemed to hold some resentment over the fact that she had to give up her career to be a housewife, and she encouraged Friedan to join the school newspapers. Although her family was Jewish, one of the few in Peoria, Friedan was agnostic. She attended Peoria High School, where she felt lonely and outcast. All of her friends joined high school sororities and left her behind. She blamed this in part on her shyness and unattractiveness, but mostly being Jewish. She wrote that the anti-Semitism she faced was what made her first aware of social injustices. In 1938, she entered Smith College, a liberal arts college for women in Northampton, Massachusetts. There she edited the college newspaper, which supported union organizing and was against fascism abroad. Many of her classmates felt that the newspaper was too controversial and radical under Friedan, but she felt the topics were necessary to be addressed. In her junior year, she was elected to Phi Beta Kappa, the oldest and most prestigious honor society in the United States. She graduated with honors from Smith College in 1942 with a major in psychology. She then spent a year on a graduate fellowship to train as a psychologist at UC Berkeley. There she dropped the E from her name because she thought it was pretentious. She then decided to turn away from a career in psychology. She cited her reasons as her then boyfriend threatening to break up with her if she continued her studies, and seeing that there were few female professors at Smith College who had a family, while she was convinced to feel that, as a woman, she should have a husband and children. In 1943, she moved to New York and worked as a reporter for the Federated Press, where she stayed for 3 years. She also became involved in labor and union issues, working as a writer for the United Electrical, Radio, and Machine Workers of America, one of the most radical unions in the U.S., which was also against fascism. She also authored union pamphlets arguing for workplace rights for women. In 1947, she married Carl Friedman, a veteran and aspiring theater producer who later became an advertising executive, and they changed their name to Friedan upon marrying. They lived in Queens and had their first child, Daniel, in 1949. Friedan received maternity leave and continued to work. However, after her second son Jonathan was born in 1953, she was refused maternity leave and forced to stop working to take care of her children. In 1956, her third and final child Emily was born, and the family moved to Rockland County, New York, where Friedan remained a housewife, though she did do some freelance writing for middle-class women's magazines. She said she was unhappy as a housewife, but felt guilty for wanting to do more than just care for her family. Friedan began research for her first book, The Feminine Mystique, in the late 1950s. At a 15-year reunion for Smith College graduates in 1957, she conducted a survey of 200 classmates and found that most women were dissatisfied with their limited opportunities as housewives. And in September of 1960, she first presented the idea of the problem that has no name in an article for the women's magazine Good Housekeeping, titled Women Are People Too. She wrote, "This problem is not easy to put into words because those women who struggle with it struggle alone, afraid to admit that they are asking themselves the silent question, is this all? As they make the beds, shop for groceries and new curtains, eat peanut butter sandwiches with the children, chauffeur Cub Scouts and brownies to and from meetings, or lie beside their husbands at night." She later expanded on these ideas in her first book, The Feminine Mystique, published in 1963, after 5 years of surveying women across the country, and under influence of the French feminist philosopher Simone de Beauvoir's 1949 book, The Second Sex, about the treatment of women throughout history. In The Feminine Mystique, Friedan elaborated on the problem that has no name. She defined the feminine mystique as the idea that women were naturally fulfilled as housewives and as mothers. She argued that this romanticization of the housewife was perpetuated by women's magazines. Women's magazines were mostly being edited by men, and they mostly showed stories and articles of women being happy as housewives and unhappy having other careers. Social scientists, functionalism defined women's role in society as housewives and mothers. Educators, women's schools taught non-challenging classes because they thought they would spoil women's femininity otherwise. Educators also blamed career-focused women for raising maladjusted children. Freudian psychologist, Freud saw women as childlike and destined to be housewives, and advertisers. Advertisers pushed the idea of needing to buy their household products in order to be a professional housewife. The book connected with many middle-class American women, instantly becoming a bestseller. It has sold over 3 million copies in over a dozen languages. It is credited with kicking off the movement of second-wave feminism in the United States. Friedan is widely considered the mother of second-wave feminism. First-wave feminism, a movement that occurred from the late 19th century to the early 20th century, focused mainly on legal political issues and women's suffrage. After World War II, women were relegated to housewives once more, which stirred the second wave of feminism, this one focusing on broader issues of inequality in the workplace and in families, as well as on sexuality, reproductive rights, and domestic violence. Women not only had to fight for equal power, but changed the nature of power. She focused her efforts on the establishment of childcare programs, parental leave, flexible work hours, and the right to abortion. A major victory of second-wave feminists was the Equal Pay Act of 1963, passed under the Kennedy administration. It aimed to abolish the wage disparity between women and men and prohibit sex discrimination in wages. It was aided by the Presidential Commission on the Status of Women, which released a report in 1963 on the status of American women and criticizing the inequalities they face. Also, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 included sex among the categories protected against discrimination. Friedan and the second-wave feminist movement also supported the Equal Rights Amendment, which would guarantee equal rights for all Americans regardless of sex, ending legal distinctions between men and women, but it has not passed in Congress since its proposal in 1923. In 1966, Friedan, along with Polly Murray, a law professor at Yale and member of the President's Commission on the Status of Women, attended the Third National Conference of Commissions on the Status of Women in Washington, D.C. from June 28th to June 30th, 1966, where many delegates wanted to end sex discrimination in employment, but were told that they had no authority. Frustrated, Friedan gathered attendees to discuss alternative strategies. Around 15 to 20 women met in Friedan's hotel room and formed a new organization, the National Organization for Women, or NOW, and NAACP for Women. The organization's mission was to bring women into full participation in the mainstream of American society now, exercising all the privileges and responsibilities thereof in truly equal partnership with men. In particular, it sought to end sex discrimination and help wanted advertisements. Friedan served as the organization's first president until 1970, but did not run again because she thought the organization's rejection of men as members in support of lesbians was too radical. In 1969, she attended the first National Conference on Abortion Laws, Modification or Repeal, from February 14th to 16th in Chicago, where she was part of a 12-person planning committee that founded the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws, later named the National Abortion Rights Action League, then renamed again to NARAL Pro-Choice America. It is a non-profit organization that lobbies and advocates for access to abortion and birth control, support for paid maternal leave, and protection against pregnancy discrimination. In May of 1969, she and her husband also had a divorce. Friedan organized the Women's Strike for Equality on August 26, 1970, the 50th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. The strike was sponsored by NOW and took place in New York City. It had three goals: make abortion free and accessible, give women equal opportunity in the workforce, and to provide free access to childcare. It was also seen as a demonstration of second-wave feminism's goals as a whole. The strike united older liberal feminists, of which Friedan was, and younger, more radical feminists. Although Friedan was a major feminist leader, she was also heavily criticized. Her research and book mainly focused on white, middle-class, college-educated, heterosexual women, and largely ignored women of color and queer women. She was also criticized for being too accommodating towards men. Her mindset was that women and men should work together to get rid of the inequalities between them. She did not support lesbians, calling them the Lavender Menace. Lavender was commonly associated with homosexuality in that time. She thought that lesbianism, along with sexual politics and pornography, distracted from the real needs of most women, and it, along with random hatred of men, would not lead to meaningful change, instead just leading to anger and unproductive arguments. This led to a group of radical lesbian feminists adopting the name in 1970. The Lavender Menace advocated for lesbians' rights to be included in the feminist movement and succeeded in getting recognition from NOW in 1971. In July 1971, she co-founded the National Women's Political Caucus with Congresswomen Bella Abzug and Shirley Chisholm, and feminist journalist Gloria Steinem, among others. The NWPC hoped to get women running for office, elected to office, and seated as delegates in national conventions. In 1976, she published It Changed My Life, Writings on the Women's Movement, a collection of previous essays, talks, and columns reflecting on her contributions to the feminist movement. She had a regular column in McCall's newspaper in the 70s called Betty Friedan's Notebook. Her next book, The Second Stage, was published in 1982. She had been criticized for placing the blame on women in the Feminine Mystique, along with the other criticisms, and this book attempted to address some of these by being more moderate. Her fourth book, Fountain of Age, was published in 1993 about the age mystique. She wrote about how age was perceived as a decline or deterioration from youth. She characterized the older years of one's life as a period of new life instead of deterioration, as many older people were still willing to take risks and learn more. In 1997, she published Beyond Gender, The New Politics of Work and Family, in which she argued for a shift beyond gender politics towards addressing the needs of people as a whole. Her autobiography, Life So Far, was published in 2000. She died on February 4th, 2006, her 85th birthday, of congestive heart failure at her home in Washington, D.C. 59 years ago, Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, started the second wave of feminism in the United States, rallying women together to make their voices heard and allow them to break free from societal expectations. It is thanks to the advances made by second wave feminists that we are now in the midst of a fourth wave. As of today, NOW is the leading feminist organization in the United States and has continued to advocate for equal rights, broadening its efforts to encompass all women and their needs.